For our next topic here, let's go ahead and talk about primary, secondary, and anti-air gunners ammunition itself. When it comes to, let's say, this Leipzig here, you will have your primary, secondary, and your gunner's ammunition. The gunner, or the AA gunner's ammunition. The AA gunners you will want to set up as being either high explosive, a multi-purpose if they're smaller caliber, like 40 millimeters, 20 millimeters, 50 calibers or such, or if you have the option, you want to set it at variably timed or timed fuse. Those are really your only options when it comes to them. When it comes to your secondary gunners, you will have sometimes 2, 3 options. You'll see high explosive, timed fuse, variably timed. Sometimes you'll even see an armor piercing round. When it comes to these types of guns, really what you want to do is if you see that your ship has a lot of AA turrets or a lot of secondary turrets, try and consider using them for anti-air capabilities. So setting them up with a timed fuse or a variably timed fuse if you have it. Now, if it doesn't, what you would want to do is really have them set up with a high explosive round. I know it'd be tempting to go ahead and set them up with an armor piercing, and once you go ahead and get an experience, you may end up changing that yourself. However, what I would recommend as new players, you have multiple ammunition types for secondary gunners, set them up as high explosive because that will allow you to do the most damage not only to the smaller ships, be it a torpedo boat or gunboat, maybe even a frigate, but also going ahead and still hitting aircraft as they come in. They have a low flying torpedo boat or torpedo aircraft, or you have someone that's doing a dive bomb on you. You have your gunner set to anti-air. That high explosive round, once it hits the target, will actually detonate. You have an armor piercing round, it'll rip through the aircraft without actually detonating. Sometimes it'll kill it, sometimes it won't. But do you want to take that risk? More often, you probably won't. Now, for your primary, this one here has a good example of nearly all the types of ammunition you will see on a type of ship. You will start off in most ships, and coming up with this update, you will actually, as of this video, the update will change it to where every ship, even the higher ones, be it the battle cruisers and battleships, which sometimes can start off with semi-armor piercing or armor piercing, everyone will start off with a high explosive round. Now from there, you will have sometimes either one option, 2 options, maybe no options on types of ammunition. But if you see a semi-armor piercing round or armor piercing capped ballistic capped shell, these ones here are what you really want to choose. Semi-armor piercing is good as a stopgap until you can get to that more better penetrating armor piercing round. However, what you will be doing is trading penetration rate, or up here at the semi-armor piercing, for more explosive mass, whereas the other one will give you better penetration but not do as much damage on the inside with the explosive mass. Sometimes you will see a third option for a round being the timed fuse. Now this timed fuse round here, or a variably timed fuse depending on the type of ship you're in, may be tempting, and you might, if you get more experience, go ahead and decide to bring a few with you. I recommend as a new player not doing that at all. Now, the reason being is you don't have the capability in realistic battles to go ahead and see where you're suggested to fire. You will end up doing a lot of rounds in the air, wasting time when you should be really targeting more ground units, or surface units as they say in here with the Naval. Now, again, if you get more experience on it, you may change your mind. This is just my recommendation on what you should do as a new player. Let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. For our next topic here, we have 2 different things: smoke shells or smoke grenades and smoke screening. Now, the smoke grenades, I believe, are more of the torpedo boats, more of your frigates, stuff like that, whereas your smoke screening tends to be on nearly every ship except for the barges. Now, most people, when they go ahead and do it, they're doing it to try and stop either somebody from shooting them or maybe one of their allies or friends. With this being the case, you see a lot of people panic pop them. They will go ahead and use a smoke screen while going in a straight line in whichever direction they were originally traveling while trying to fire. The problem with this being you will still be able to be locked on because the front half of your ship is still exposed to the enemy. The enemy that's firing at you or at whoever it is that's next to you will still be fired upon. What you need to do, if you are firing this to protect yourself, turn away from whoever's shooting at you or whichever direction you're being shot from, and then pop this. Or you can pop it and then turn. This will allow you to go ahead and create a smoke screen between you and the target. Now, the enemy still can shoot through the smoke screen, but they won't be able to lock onto you, making it much more difficult to actually hit you. Also, guys, if you are popping one of these smoke screens, be cognizant or aware of what your surroundings are going on. If you have other allies or friends behind you and you're popping one of these smoke screens, be careful in case you're actually blocking their ability to shoot the enemy ships. If you're blocking their ability to shoot the ships that's shooting at you, you're actually doing yourself twice the harm. You're stopping your friends from being able to help you, and you're potentially causing them to get shot at next, not realizing that, hey, they're going to come sailing out of your smokescreen into an ambush. So be careful, guys. Be cognizant or aware of what your surroundings are and where your friends are on your team. This will help you and your friends to go ahead and try and win the battle just a little bit easier. Let's move on to our next topic, though. This next topic, let's go ahead and talk about selecting gun groups. Now, to go ahead and do this, to choose between your primary, secondary, and anti-air gunners, you will need to actually make sure what your combined controls are for it. Let's go over here to our controls. You will see the select primary, select secondary, and select anti-aircraft weapons. Now, what this allows you to do is, like I said, change between the three as needed. Or when you come into most matches, you will be selected on your primary gun groups. This will be your largest calibers. Sometimes it'll be one turret, two turrets, three turrets, multiple turrets. I mean, it all depends on what ship you are in. Now, as you're going through match, you may end up deciding, hey, I'm just going to let my AI gunners go ahead and deal with everything else, the secondaries and the AA, as need be. I'm not going to worry about it, which is okay. However, if you get into a situation to where you're seeing, let's say, a small PT boat, a torpedo boat, or one of the gunboats coming at you. Now, instead of allowing them to get up close and personal and hit you with a depth charge, a mine, or even a torpedo, what you'll want to do is target them. Now, if you've got a medium to smaller caliber main gun, you'll be able to hit them easily enough. However, let's say you're in a battle cruiser, a battleship, a heavy cruiser, something that's got a long reload rate, you're not going to want to wait for that to go ahead and hit the enemy ship. If you miss and reload and then try and do it again, it ends up not being as useful, especially when you start using armor-piercing rounds. However, what you sometimes may end up having to deal with is your AI gunners not being able to hit the target either. They may not have the right amount of skill points put into them to make them effective at shorter ranges or at whatever range dealing with certain targets. This is where you taking control of the gunners becomes effective. So for ours, we had it Control 1, Control 2, Control 3. So Alt 1, Alt 2, Alt 3. So Alt 2 brings us to our secondary gunners. Now it is all of our 88 millimeters. With that being it, all you'll see there on the side, all of these gunners are our 88 millimeter. We're in control of them and where they're looking at, where they're shooting at. And when you actually go into your gunner sight, it'll bring them all to bear wherever you're facing. Fire them at it. There we go. They'll have the same reload rate, same response. You'll have any ammunition types that you actually chose to bring in with you. So that target's down. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's say we want to shoot this guy with our secondaries. Our 88 millimeters should be able to go ahead and handle the target. Excellent. They hit him perfectly. Now, if we had missed it, on our main cannons, we'd be having a much longer time. This is where the advantages of having your secondary gunners being controlled by you come into effect. You'll be able to fire them more accurately, more efficiently, instead of trying to fire many rounds waiting for it to reload. Let's go over to our AA and deal with the aircraft buzzing around. Where is it at? There it is. we've got many AA gunners. This is all of our smaller caliber MGs. We're able to go ahead and do this. Now, when we're doing it like this and the target's circling around us, it's not going to be as effective. However, if you notice there's a dive bomb or a torpedo bomb or something smaller coming in at the horizon and not necessarily going ahead and diving down on you, you may want to take control of your AA gunners and actually focus on whatever that target is that's coming at you. You see it's coming in a straight line or zigzagging, trying to go ahead and avoid your gunners. This is where you taking control of it will be a much greater advantage, okay? Just a piece of advice for you. Now, let's talk about targeting and with primary guns while we're here on our topic of selecting gun groups. So we select our targets, and this is where we were talking about earlier, the need to lock target and the distance control. When you lock onto a target, two things happen as we mentioned. The distance measured will be updated, and the shooting distance with correction will be updated. As the unit is moving around, you will notice that the target is actually going to go ahead and change. Let's go ahead and restart it to get this example for on that ship that moves around right in front of us. Little payload.
Gunners are searching for airborne and surface targets.
Turn off our gunners. There we go. So this is the boat that we're going to go ahead and do it. So as we lock on, it'll be showing the updating distance here. There we go. And it'll lock distance measured and distance with correction. Shooting distance with correction, once it's set by the gunners, unless you go in there and change it, it'll stay there until it's locked on again. It'll continue to measure the distance. Now at distances like these, you can easily go ahead and manually adjust as needed. So we can increase it or decrease it with our scroll wheel as we set up earlier for the distance correction. For much farther targets, when you lock on, what I recommend with your bigger caliber guns, your primary calibers, is lock onto the target and then figure out where you are needing to lead the target. So you lock on and you fire the first one. So there we noticed, okay, I'm shooting a little more farther ahead of it. I don't want to necessarily kill it because I'm trying to use it as an example, but we fire on to the next one here. Once it's reloaded, this is where the ranging shots become effective that we were mentioning as well. We lock onto it, figure out where we need to aim. Oh, we're getting closer, but we are also noticing that it's turning into us, and maybe we're shooting too close to it. Now we want to make sure we change our distance correction. This is where, like I said, our scroll wheel becomes useful. We lock on, we scroll it out just a little bit because we're getting in too close. Now we're going to fire it again. Oh, there we go. Now we're starting to get it more on target. That if we had actually let it properly, it would have shot that ship and killed it easily. Let's go over to one of the bigger ships and kind of show you what an example of that would happen as. So out here, we go ahead and check it out here. This one is, I believe, one of the heavy cruisers. Am I correcting? Am I correct or not? Not 100% certain. We should be able to penetrate it with the Baltimore's main cannon. We lock on to it and we fire. We will wait for it to round the splash, and when it splashes, we'll see if it's either too close, too far, or if it's actually hitting it perfectly on target. The one thing we are not able to do is actually increase your primary gunner's accuracy for any of your skills. It is all done by your handling and controlling of the range. That one there ended up being too close, so we'll keep it at the exact same target, we'll lock onto it, but we'll increase it. So we're going to scroll wheel away from our hand, increase the range just a little bit, and fire it again. Now with that correction, it should make it, instead of landing in the water in front of it, it should start hitting the hull. One of the other issues you might notice is when you're shooting a target, sometimes it'll hit either too far past it, or it'll be hitting the smokestacks. See, it ended up hitting it perfectly. In those type of situations, so let's go ahead and do this and act like we're shooting up here. It'll end up going way too far past the target, or the smokestacks. To bring it down, you will scroll wheel into your hand. Here we go. We'll bring it back down. We'll see that. Oh, they actually ended up hitting it perfectly. But if we fire it again here, it should all be landing instead of into the deck. It should land into the side. Now, depending on the target you're firing at, it may not be beneficial to land in the side. You might want to land a little bit higher up. You may want to hit the actual control tower where all of the command is, where the steering will be done, or anything of that nature. So pick your targets. If it's a lighter target, you probably want to aim into the side. If it's a heavily armed target, be it a battle cruiser, battleship, a heavy cruiser, if you're not actually doing damage to it, aim for the guns. So raise it up higher than it would be if it were to hit into the side of the ship or into the actual con tower itself, the control tower. So that would be my recommendations for that. Let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. Alright guys, for this next topic, let's go ahead and talk about ship identification. Some people, they're grizzled vets, they know exactly what a ship is just by looking at the profile of it. It's a destroyer, it's a cruiser, it's a heavy cruiser, it's specifically this one, specifically this battleship, battle cruiser, it's this small frigate, whatever it might be. They're able to go ahead and identify it. Not everybody can, especially the newer players. I know I, for one, even though I've been playing Naval for a little bit now, I cannot identify what type of ship it is every single time just by looking at the profile. However, there is an ability in game that you can use to help you identify in realistic battles. What you do is you lock onto your target, so we got this one out here. You press your radio wheel command, so it brings it up here for radio messages. You go to attack, and then you'll see at number 7 there at the bottom that it says the name of the ship or name of the person and then the type of ship. So it's a light cruiser. So here's our light cruiser. We go over here, we have another ship. Let's see what this one is. This one's another light cruiser. We don't even have an eye on the target, but we can see roughly what it is. There's another one that we've locked onto. It's a destroyer. So it'll show you the type of ship it is. It won't say exactly what it is, but you'll be able to see the type. Now, while we are at it in here, I'm going to go ahead and we've talked about our other ones of toggling and targeting ships, especially when it came to our basic control needs of lock, target, and distance correction. Let's go ahead and show you what it'd be like to deal with it while we're in match. We've got the target, we've locked on, updating distance, we fire our round. We know this is a light cruiser, we're a light cruiser. I've actually changed my speed down to standard, as you can see over here on the side. That way my rounds won't be going crazy. I'm not being shot at currently that's doing any significant damage, so my rounds should be fine. I'm not trying to overlead the target. Looks like he's slowing down a bit there, how quickly he's going. My rounds ended up landing just over there behind it, so I need to pull it further over, relock it back on, and bring it in closer, so I'm scroll wheeling towards my hand, and then fire off my next rounds. These rounds here with that type of correction should now be landing into the ship itself. If it were needing to be changed up and be farther away, I would scroll wheel away from my hand or whatever it might be. Let's see where they actually land this time around. One, and landed more towards the front. So now we know that we're starting to get the right range. We just need to be able to change our actual lead. Because he's standing still, we're able to hit it there. Every time we lock onto a target, though, we do need to update our distance. So distance correction gets changed, we fire it again, and those rounds are going out. We'll be able to go ahead and see how we did here in a little bit once they land. Fortunately, I cannot lock onto the target because it's behind a rock from me. However, we can see up here from the damage indicator that we actually hit it perfectly inside the ship. If I could still lock onto it, we would be able to do more damage to it. Let's go ahead and try and do this one over here. Excellent. He is going the opposite direction of me. I need to lock on him and fire again. Let's find out what it is. It's a light cruiser. Lock on and fire. We're not going to make any adjustments to our distance correction yet. We're going to figure out how much lead we actually need to do first and where they're going to land. a little bit closer, so it shouldn't take as long for our rounds to land. But our gunners are also firing off. And those perfectly landed on the ship, but however, it ended up landing a little higher up than where we wanted to. He's already dead. One of the things we can do is, let's say, that's too small. Let's not go ahead and shoot at something that quite small. We've got this target here. You can actually lock onto a target, make your sight distance corrections from the third person. You do not have to be zoomed in. It makes it a little bit easier when you can see your target and where they're landing. However, sometimes what you want to do is lock onto it. Now, if you see how we're not able to go down below where the target itself is, you'll see that the circle kind of stays right at the base of the target. So long as we are in this third person, it will never go lower than that. However, you are actually in your first person, your guns can be lowered much lower than the actual target's base. We've got them locked on. We find out what we have. It's a light cruiser, so we know it's going to be a smaller ship. Let's go ahead and fire it with just barely any lead on it. Once they land, we'll be able to see if, what type of damage we're dealing to it. If it's just going to be flak from the shell landing near the target, or if it hit the smokestacks, what it actually did. Let's see what it does. Oh, there it is. Doesn't look like we actually hit anything at all. Give it a little more of a lead. We'll draw it in, so we're scroll wheeling towards our hand, and we're firing again. It is still locked out there in the distance. Just a matter of seeing what happens. He might be actually going the other direction from us, and I think that's what's ended up happening. We're probably shooting behind it. He's probably traveling from left to right on our screen. So let's aim towards the other direction there. We've relocked it on. We changed our sight distance correction. We're going to see what happens with that. I do see some stuff out here in the distance we'll deal with. First off, see, now we're actually hitting it. He seems to be standing still behind an island, as we kind of mentioned. Let's relock it. We'll do one last salvo. We're going to bring it in a little bit closer and then fire. Hopefully this will hit. If it does or doesn't matter. We're taking some damage here. I'll actually take care of that in a little bit. Nope. Oh well. But those are the basics on how to do it. Like I said, you can do your lock target and your sight distance correction from the third person or from the actual first person perspective. That way you don't have to worry about what's going on. But you can see from here what the target is doing. You have torpedo tubes. You can actually see the line if it's going forward, backwards, whatever it might be. Or you have a side profile. Look at their smokestack. You can't tell if they're going forward or if they're going in reverse. Look at the smoke. It's going towards the rear of the ship. That means they're moving forward. If the smoke's actually lined up towards the front. That means they're actually going in reverse. These are all little tidbits and piece of advice that you guys can use. So this one here, actually give him a little bit of love and attention. And turn it on. We're keeping ourselves as much as possible from being overly exposed. Oh, he's a lot closer. We're going to bring it down a lot more. Made our changes and we sent him out. And oh, guy right here. He is something else. Let's go into our person. He's actually going in reverse now. We've changed it up. We actually are going to need to do it a little bit farther out because we should be landing short now because I brought it in closer instead of pushing it out further. My secondary gunners are also hitting him, so that one hit him perfectly. But he is going farther away from us. We're going to increase the range a little bit and fire again. By the time those rounds land, it should be hitting him perfectly into the side of his ship. And let's see. Perfect. That's all you have to do, guys. Just make your small corrections. Figure out first the lead of the target, where they're going to land. Once they start landing in the area, then start making your correction. For our last topic here, we have fire extinguishing, repair, and breach repair, or unwatering as it would typically be called. These by default are usually turned on once they've been researched. What you can do is you can turn them on and off by pressing the button. So our fire extinguisher is set up as R. What you will do is you will press it again and then I'll remove the A. What this allows us to do is to go ahead and manually do it ourselves. Why would you ask? Why would you want to go ahead and take it off of automatic? Well, automatic is nice. You are only having to deal with it once. After about 1 or 2 seconds, it'll pop and automatically start doing it while you're firing at whatever target or doing whatever other task you might be dealing with at the time. However, if you have everything turned on to automatic, it'll pop them all at the same time. If you have more than one process going, what it will do is it will increase the time it takes to do any of the task. You specifically focus your crew on, let's say, firefighting. Instead of having them firefight and do repair, they will get done much quicker with the task. Whereas their abilities will sometimes be tripled, maybe even quadrupled. So multiplied by 3 or by 4 on how long it would typically take. So to correct this, what I would recommend is doing it one at a time. Let's say you're currently repairing your guns because they were damaged and you aren't taking any water on that's of significance, you aren't taking any fire damage, but you all of a sudden get a salvo from some enemy ship and you start taking fire damage. Well, what you would need to do then is to stop the repair and deal with the fire damage. If you're trying to deal with repairs and fire damage, as you're repairing, you will notice that modules will get damaged or ruined by the fire. Stop your repair by holding down your repair key. So you will hold down your F, you will see a circle timer that will go ahead and pop up on the screen. Once that is done, your repair will stop. You will then start your fire extinguishing, and that will allow you to go ahead and deal with the fire. Once that's done, go back and deal with your repair for sure. Now, let's say if you take on water damage. If you're not seeing the numbers move too much or you're not seeing your ships going under, you probably don't need to worry too much about it first. Deal with your fire extinguishing first, deal with your repair second, and then your unwatering third. However, if you are noticing you are taking on a lot of damage, a lot of water, because of, let's say, a bigger round hits you or multiple rounds have hit you and you've got a lot of holes in your ship, you probably want to stop fighting fires, stop repairing damage, deal with the leaks first. You don't want to be sinking and trying to deal with everything. You will sink quicker than you will go ahead and put out a fire. So in those situations, deal with the water first. Otherwise, typically you'll take a little bit of damage here, maybe a breach here and there. It's nothing too serious. You can usually wait for the last thing to deal with. So that's what my recommendation is fire, repair, and then unwatering. Or if you are taking on water, unwatering, fire, and then repair in that order. And again, reminder to go ahead and stop what you're doing for, let's say, repair or unwatering. Simply hold down the key until it stops. That will go ahead and allow you to start up a new process and not have multiple running at the same time. Okay. So guys, this concludes the tutorial. If you have any further questions, we will be live on a live stream. I'll have the link down below for our Twitch live stream, as well as a Discord that you can go ahead and visit that is part of our community. We'd be happy to have you to either answer questions or even just simply be a part of. Guys, don't be shy. Hopefully we'll catch you in the future. Until then, take care. I'll catch you next time, guys.